Hello there, everybody. A season started 4-2. It's exciting. Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo for you here, and the Community Shield, right? Doesn't matter. It's not important. It's not real trophy. It's just a nice little friendly for people to go and have a day out in the sun. Doesn't ever tell you who's going to win the league. Like, lol, Liverpool won it last year. But it does tell you quite a bit about the two teams involved. Last season, it told us that while Man City was still really good, they might be having quite a slow start that year, as it so proved. And this season, it tells us that Arsenal might finally have their number. Now here are yesterday's teams for you, and just while you're having a look at that, really quick disclaimer: if you are a Man City fan, you're sitting there thinking, got our number? Are you mad? It was on penalties and it took a last-minute deflected goal to even get there. Shut up, you idiot. You've got to remember, right? It's levels, isn't there? You're still amazing and you still might win it all, and you were still really good for parts of this game, but this is about as close as anyone has looked to shutting your shit down in about a year. So just please, on behalf of the entire rest of English football, just let us have this. Anyway, yes, so back to the teams. Arsenal had Timber, Rice and Havertz, all very new, all very expensive. They were starting, and Man City had Kovacic, and I think that already tells you something. For Arsenal, it's three players who come in and immediately raise the bar in their area of the pitch, let them do things they couldn't previously do. And for Man City, it's, well, there's an Ilkay Gundogan-shaped hole. What is the just most available, cost-effective, like-for-like replacement we can get? So on the one hand, you've got a team trying to maintain the consistency that saw them win it all, and on the other hand, you've got a team who really hated the fact they didn't win anything and have spent big to match that ambition. The thing is, the most interesting new face for me in this game was this man, Declan Rice, because I think everybody assumed he was coming in to provide a shield to the back four, to make them more robust, more resolute, to be better at playing in these areas of the pitch. He actually did all of his good work right here. So we'll just wave the old magic wand to show you City in their build-up. So while last season we saw Man City have that like box midfield formation that allowed them to outnumber teams, what they did when they played Arsenal last season was they actually tried to stretch them as much as possible to bait them into a big press, bait them into a big trap, and then play through the gaps that left. And if you're an Arsenal fan, you'll remember that well. You went to the Etihad and they basically just toyed with you. They kept putting the ball into the widest, deepest possible areas. You guys charged them down, tried to win the ball back, failed to do so, and then the space this created allowed them to just play balls into the middle, and they just went through you like a hot knife through. That's twice I've swore in this video now, which I'm not saying is entirely because of how stressful the Women's World Cup penalties was, but I'm also not saying that. Anyway, this is how it looked in that game. They kept their attackers as high as possible to force the fullbacks to not get involved. There was two in the middle. They tied up the central players, and you were effectively man for man across the back with the goalkeeper spare, so they would just knock the ball between them all, and as soon as somebody left the gap, they would just play out, someone would drop, and then they were away. They made it look incredibly easy. So Mikel Arteta needed a solution to this, and the solution to that is literally just get Declan Rice. And what he enables them to do is just shut down the entire middle section of the pitch here, shut down Man City's entire build-up. Thomas Partey was relieved of his man-marking duties, and he kind of sat in this space to stop any long, direct balls from ending up in this area. And Ødegaard, rather than pressing the centre-backs, dropped in with Rice to basically man-mark both Rodri and Kovacic. And what kept happening, and I genuinely couldn't believe my eyes with this, was we had this really compact sort of man-marking job where you had Havertz, Rice and Ødegaard as a three, just completely shutting down this area of the pitch. They could not get the ball into the two central midfielders. So this forced the two Man City centre-backs wider and wider, and then hang on, that's going to look weird. Where's my... Never had them this far out before, hang on. That meant that Ortega was pretty much playing out here, and they just had a Mexican standoff. And the reason Rice is so important to this is because Havertz and Ødegaard, it was both their job to close down whoever had the ball, to try and block off whatever passing lane they could, and whichever one went, Rice would then cover across to the man he was leaving. Because you can see what the inherent problem with this is, can't you? Like, let's say Ødegaard, he decides to close down the keeper because he's got the ball, he shuts off that passing lane there, so he can't go that way. He's got to go into the centre-back, in this case Diaz, who is the only one free. Now obviously he would do that because a quick pass into Diaz then gets Kovacic in because he's free, but because you've got Rice there, who's so good at reading the situation and knowing what's going on, he would then jump onto the free man. And now the problem that gives them is because Martinelli and Saka are still being aggressive themselves, they are waiting just a few yards off the fullbacks, who are now pushed really high to try and jump onto them if that's where the pass goes. Diaz is then faced with a very difficult situation. He doesn't want to go wide because that's where the trap is. He now can't go back to his goalkeeper because Ødegaard will be curling his run to try and stop that happening. He can't go into the man he wanted to go into because Rice has jumped onto him. So he's got two options. Either you lump it long into one of the wide players, which Arsenal are more than happy with. They've got a numerical advantage in this area. Or you just stand there and go... And that's what they did several times. We ended up in this stalemate where Man City weren't really sure where to go with their first pass because their two central players, the players they needed to get the ball to every single time, they were blocked off. And again, why this only works with Declan Rice is because when he didn't have a specific player to mark, he was sticking to Rodri like glue. Like, teams will try and do this kind of thing to City all the time. They'll try and shut down these passing lanes. They'll try and give them nowhere to go. It doesn't really work because their movement is so good. But Rice just followed Rodri absolutely everywhere. He did not let him have pretty much a single forward pass in the first half. Everything had to be sideways, or everything had to be backwards, or everything just had to be desperate and long. Like, it even got to the point, as you can see here, where Rodri just went and played at centre-back and Stones went and sat in the pivot position just to see whether or not Rice would stay there or whether he would keep following him. They didn't really know what to do. And again, the reason it has to be Rice is because he was so important to their build-up play as well. He wasn't just doing a really good defensive job all over the pitch. When Arsenal were building out from the back, he was taking a position based on what it is they were trying to do. Nigerian Timber was making fantastic runs down the left-hand side, but he didn't leave Bernardo Silva free because Rice just sort of tucked in as like this left-sided centre-back. He marshalled the space. He stopped Alvarez from picking it up deep, or he got across to Silva when he needed to. He had that side of the pitch completely locked down. But the best bit of all, and the thing I think you're going to see Arsenal doing a lot this season when they kind of settle into their shape, was you would occasionally just drop between the two centre-backs, allow them to spread, then both White and Timber would just immediately push up as wing-backs. It's where they got that great Ben White chance from. If you look at the build-up to that, look who is their deepest player, look who's their most central player. Declan Rice has dropped in there, which allowed Saliba to just sort of run unopposed up that end of the pitch, because obviously we've got Rice there tying up Haaland all of a sudden. That allowed White to get in, because now you've got an overload on that side, and they should have scored from it. And not to Columbo this, but one final thing. The reason this has to be Declan Rice and nobody else is because even when you press them that well, even when you've got that lockdown, some City player will find space and they will just go over you or through you or something. Declan Rice is not in the picture here. He's still not in the picture here. And then, if you beat his press, you still have to beat his recovery run. And very few teams are going to do that this season. And just as one final thing, if you do think this is more the system than it is the individual who is doing it, this is what happened when Partey ended up in that sort of front pressing position. That is Phil Foden spinning him like a goddamn Baneblade, and that's where Man City got their goal from. And this is why, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be very encouraged by this, because this is not something other teams could just do. It only worked because Saliba had the shackles on Erling Haaland so well. They were not able to get a long ball into him where he could bully the defence, which would be a really easy out because, well, had him in his back pocket. Haaland didn't get a single attempt on goal, I think. And when they were able to get the ball into the wide areas, which City do like to do, they love to have these players wide to stretch you, to leave gaps in between. You've got both White and Timber, who, while being very good going forward, are centre-backs by trade and are really good at defending one-on-one. And you know what? Another encouraging thing from an Arsenal perspective is that the tide only turned when Kevin De Bruyne came on the pitch. The guy is so good at like solving these problems and finding space where you're not allowing him to have them. He did completely flip the game on his head, but if Man City are now so reliant upon him to do this, that's going to be a tough season for them. And yes, it's not like they dominated City and had a million bajillion chances and beat them 3-0 or anything, but like I said at the start, it's levels. This is sort of a level of tactical dominance over City for a large part of the game that we haven't really seen anybody have. It doesn't mean they're bad, doesn't mean they're still probably not just going to go on and win everything for the sake of it, but something. It's the bottom line here. If you're going to spend £100 million on a footballer, you might as well spend it on the one player who can help you defeat your ultimate adversary. So to Mikel Arteta, to you, sir, I say that is a level of spite and pettiness I think wins you a Premier League title. And you know what? It's funny I should mention that because 442 Linchpin, very much our own Declan Rice, Mark White, has done a video for the channel on why Arsenal are definitely going to win the league, which he made before they even beat City, which is even more impressive. I'll link that there and also down there. It'll be at the end of the video, so you've got no excuse not for watching it, in my opinion. More than that, though, it's just really good, so please do leave him some love in the comments. And speaking of the comments, I'm just knocking these segues out of the park today. Please do leave all of your thoughts on Arsenal and the season ahead and all the myriad of things I haven't talked about in that game, which I could have, in the little box below. We do honestly love to hear from you. In the meantime, at Adam Cleary on all the socials, at FourFourTwo on all the socials as well. Season preview issue, the best one we do all year, in stores now. But until next we meet, could be tomorrow, I've been Adam Cleary, it's been FourFourTwo. Nice seeing you. Goodbye.